and then Aliona van der Horst, who comes from the Netherlands. The title of this panel,
you can all get like translation if you cannot follow in English. And I want to explain why that title. We like, in this festival, the purpose of this festival is obviously showcasing works of female directors. Why? Because we don't think this is not a festival for women. This is a festival of films made by women. Our main purpose is to make available to the general population films that for some reasons, maybe because they are art house, and that art house films don't travel as well as Marvel films. This is not Superman, and we want to showcase the works of female directors, and we also want to have a dialogue among the creators and among the public. That is one of our main objectives. But also, we have realized through years of experience dealing with female filmmakers that sometimes for females, it's a bit rough to dream big, to have like this, how can I say, it's more normal that we women repress our dreams, repress our need to tell the stories, repress ourselves, and we suffer more often of what is called the imposter syndrome. I'm sure you are all aware with that syndrome, no? That you don't think you're good enough, that you are very self-conscious. So sometimes we are shy about our own possibilities. So I think it's very good. We have a lot of cinema students in the room. We have a lot of cinema students in the streaming. So I think it's very important to encourage these female filmmakers in all the different sizes of filmmakers, in all the different fields, from directors of photography, from scriptwriters, sound editors, actresses, or like all kind of people that are in the creative process of making a film, to encourage them through our own experience to be brave, not to be scared. We are never born, like knowing everything. So this is why this is the title of the conference. I'm going to start with Cecilie McNair. She's from Denmark. This is her first feature film. She has done several shorts and several programs for TV, but this is her first feature. She just became a mom 8 weeks ago. She's here with her baby, so... And the title of the film that you could screen is in official competition. It will be tomorrow at Círculo de Bellas Artes. It's called Baby Pyramid. And I think it's funny enough because her film deals with problems of fertility in a society where every time is more and more hard to become pregnant. So you will tell us a little bit about that later, but welcome.
Thank you.
And then, of course, we have Maria Medeiros from Portugal that you know because we have seen a lot of films by Maria. Of course, we remember her in Pulp Fiction. Infantine, I think that was the name of your character in Pulp Fiction.
Fabienne.
Fabienne. And Maria has directed, like we all saw Captains of April, that was in Cannes, in Un Certain Regard. And she has directed documentaries, shorts, some TV, and this is a film that she has done in Brazil. And the film, it's called, I'm a disaster, so I wrote it, and don't tell me.
To our children.
Thank you, Maria.
A nuestros hijos.
A nuestros hijos, exactly. The film is A nuestros hijos. Okay, and then we have Elena van der Horst, that she's specialized in documentaries. She's a Dutch filmmaker. She's been doing documentaries since 1997. There was today the screening of her documentary that to me is one of the most beautiful documentaries that I've seen this year, honestly, that is called Turn Your Body to the Sun. She will tell us a little bit more about this film. So I would like to start with the question, how did you get here? It was something that you always wanted to be a filmmaker? Is it something that life led you to be a filmmaker? Do you have to put a lot of effort into it? How did it happen?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Yes. I actually wanted to be a journalist, so telling stories has always been a dream.
Okay.
I will just take this off because I can hear myself.
Yes, okay.
So it was actually a bit of a coincidence that I ended up in studying film and media at university, and then I met some really interesting and inspiring people, and we started to make short films. And in Denmark we have a funding system that actually make it quite easy to get fundings to do shorts, which is fantastic. It's like a ecosystem kind of that, so you can so it's possible to actually do it, to get equipment and go out and shoot and in that develop your language. And I'm actually working today on this feature with some of the friends I've met in this workshop that we have, where you can get all this funding. So yeah, it's quite amazing. So by a coincidence.
Okay. Maria, of course, you started as an actress, and then you are doing both things. I mean, and I know you sing, you can do a lot of things. But how did you decide to jump into becoming a director?
¿Puedo contestar en español?
Claro, claro, como quieras.
Bueno.
I'll answer in Spanish. Well, cinema became part of my life in a surprising way. I was interested in fine arts. I was always drawing as a kid. And then a very important filmmaker, a very crazy Medeiros, very important in Portugal. He was a friend of my mother's, and he was shooting a film, a wonderful medieval story with actors and natural surroundings. And when he had already spent half of the budget, and this is something that producers really enjoy, he said, no, this is horrible, let's start again, and let's use different approach. Let's shoot in the studio with cardboard, and I will have my mother's friend here as the protagonist. She'll be great. She looks really medieval, and I was there. It's a beautiful film. I was the protagonist, and he was a genius, a bad genius, but a bit tortured Dostoevsky type. And this was my first film. I was there in that medieval character, but I do remember that I really enjoyed the experience, discovering acting, the industry, but I was also fascinated by the other side of the camera. From that moment, I knew that I was also going to be a director. And working as an actress was a bit my school for filmmaking. Well, not bad. I would like to take the opportunity to say that on many occasions, and this is defending actresses that they'll then work as filmmakers. We tend to think that that person has less credibility. It seems that an actor then working as a filmmaker, the set is the best school. You can learn, you can observe, you can work with different filmmakers, with different techniques, with different languages, and it's the best school of learning, and a privilege to be able to witness. I think this prejudice is disappearing little by little, because we're seeing people such as Clint Eastwood think the film that closed the festival is from Frances McDormand. It is her first feature film, and I think this prejudice is quite ridiculous and doesn't make any sense. Aliona is going to tell us about her experience. She comes from documentaries. We don't make a difference at this festival between documentaries and fictions. In the official section, we always have documentaries. It is not a difference to make. We don't want to highlight it. So, Aliona, you have the floor, if you can tell us your experience.
I don't come from a background where you would think like, oh, I can become a director. That was not in my. My father always told me that, you know, if you ever want to become an actress, you will eat bread with soap on it for the rest of your life. I don't know, but I always remembered, and I really thought no. That I will never become an actress, but
when I speak, there are bubbles coming out.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why he said it, but so I worked. I studied Russian literature, and I worked as an interpreter. And I thought back then, like, okay, I can be an interpreter. Maybe I will find something what I really like on the way. Doing my job, because I was everywhere. It was really interesting because, you know, I interpreted for Gorbachev and for people who have secret meetings. So you know everything as an interpreter. So one day they asked me to interpret for a film of film school students. Because my mother is from Russia, so it was I was interpreting from Dutch to Russian. And in a train, and while I was doing this interpreting, I thought, like, this is what I want. And I never thought about it before. I love to watch documentaries, but I never thought that I would be, and I think it's really important to be close to people who do something that you aim for. Huh? That is really, if you don't, you know, I always think people from different social backgrounds, if you never meet people who are doing these things, you will not think of it. And so I thought, like, oh, this is what I want. And then I just, you know, went to film school and thought, this is what I want to do. And I think the great things about documentaries, it's like you're a kind of student of life. You're studying the rest of your life with every film, also with fiction. Well, you're saying yes. I think it's true. Same with fiction in a way, and in documentaries you have all these adventures and things, but you need to specialize every time you make a film for one subject, and then you kind of choose something else, and then you go deep into that. So that's what I really like about it.
Okay, great. So my second question is it's very easy. It's actually here we have our two Latino directors. Very good.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
Okay, so I will just introduce you to Ana Katz, that she's from Argentina. Bueno, lo voy a hacer en español porque estoy aquí con un lío.
I'm getting mixed up here. Ana is an Argentinian filmmaker. She's also an actress. I'm also a producer, and I was very lucky to be able to work with her in Kiki. She was the partner of Paco León at the beginning when they said, I want to bring an actress from Argentina, and my question was why? Why do you want to do this? And when I met her, I said, yes, of course. I am a big fan of her films. Una mujer en el parque. Mi amiga del parque is one of my favorites. I think everybody should watch it at film school. It's got lots of humor. Casa de América is now projecting a series on Ana Katz's films. It's an honor to have her here. And we also have Diana Cardozo. Diana started out working as a screenwriter, And then she has also worked as a filmmaker. She's got one of her films in the official section, Estación Catorce. She's from Mexico. So we started out by saying that this panel is called How Did You Get Here? And it seems that women are more shy when it comes to dreaming big. We think that we're not going to be properly prepared. We feel the imposter syndrome, and I think this happens to all of us, but us women suffer this more often. And considering that we have people following us on streaming, students from film school, we thought it was a good idea to talk about this. How did you get here? So, Anna? Yes, straight into it. It was just like an exam. You get called and then it's just suddenly your turn. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Elena, for the invitation. It is an honor, a pleasure to be here with these great colleagues. In my case, maybe due to my upbringing as a child, how my family worked, I never really realized that I was doing what I was doing. I started out as a child. I'd always enjoyed literature, paintings, art. There was no internet, so at home I had a large library, lots of books on art, paintings. So as a child, 6, 7, I wanted to do theatre, and they encouraged me. And then I really enjoyed the world of fiction, even more than reality on many occasions. And I started out, I trained until now. I love learning. I'm eager to learn. I always organize workshops, readings. I reread some books and rediscovering things that maybe I'd read when I was 18. I thought, I'm interested. I like revisiting these sources. I started out with acting. Then I finished a secondary school that was quite demanding, and then I considered the different alternatives. I loved cinema, but I wasn't really like my colleagues at film school. They'd already seen everything. I was new to I hadn't seen Renoir or Buñuel or Kubrick. I was a newbie. I came from the world of theatre and literature, and then I went mad. I started competing, and in a certain way, I never realized that I was doing things that were more for men. I just didn't realize that I was a woman doing this. I just did it to drive a car since I was very young, and for those tasks, and there were less women than men studying film in those days, of course, and I never thought there are less women. It never crossed my mind. But I do think that there's something that I really enjoy, that is this lack of awareness. This lack of awareness helped me to be able to hold some leadership positions. I was always confused and lost. I always was eager to learn. From a cross-cutting perspective, the teams are made of people that I truly admire. There's no pyramid structure, but I wasn't really aware that I had to imitate something. So for this reason, I felt safe and secure with my own way of doing things. Well, yes, I love this cross-cutting approach, this mainstreaming. Diana, how did you start in Mexico? Well, it was my second life. I was born in Montevideo, then I was in Buenos Aires for many years. I was a journalist. Página 12, I was the founder. I studied something different, first of all. I followed a career, 13 years, and when I was 31, well, this was strange, but this is what happened to me. I was given a lethal diagnosis. They told me I was going to die in 2 months in Mexico. It was a blood test there was a mix-up between the tubes, and they diagnosed me with Chagas disease, and this means that you can have a heart attack. And I had to experience this for 2 months with this diagnosis, and then they redid tests because I wasn't dying, so they just tested, and I thought, okay, I have the opportunity of doing something that I've always wanted to do, and this is where I started studying film at film school in Mexico. I was 31, 32, and I also come from plastic artist family. And that's when my second life started. I went to Día y Noche full-time film school, and that's when I started, and I knew how to write, but I didn't know how to write drama. I came from a different world. I was trying to understand the world and from the news media point of view. And then, well, I started working as a screenwriter. She can write, she's got a good structure, but I needed to destructure my mindset and also how I wrote towards drama, too much life, towards something different. I'm a filmmaker in reality, and my work, as Mexicans say, my chamba, is more as a screenwriter. I've worked with filmmakers, with other filmmakers, or I've written all my films, and when I want to have fun, I say, no, this one, I'm gonna direct this one, and this is a bit my experience. I love this. I love having these brave women with me. And just like Anna said, this is very important for those students who are watching us. Cinema is a way forward with a lot more questions than answers. You have to be humble, you have to accept other people's work, and you have to be open to doubts and to inputs given by other people, by life, by literature, by cinema, etc. Well, I would like to take this opportunity to ask you if there's a topic that you prefer. Are you more interested in certain subject matters or a story? Do you like a story and then you delve into it, or you say, I want to talk about solitude or the crisis in a marriage? So I would like to ask you this.
A film about people women not being able to be pregnant, and she has a 8 weeks old baby. Mm-hmm. So you were getting pregnant while you were doing the film, right?
Yes.
So you started the film not being pregnant, and in the process you got pregnant.
Yes.
Like your actress, like your main character.
Yes.
Okay.
She's like having, I think her due date is 15 December. So, yeah. And she's also having a girl. So they will maybe be friends, I don't know. But yeah. There was, I think, 3 questions in your question, but I will try to... how I work with film is always, it comes from, you know, something that I'm curious about or that I don't understand. I think I have the same as that this journalist in me wants to try to find the truth or to discover something in a subject, or yeah, I think it's always a subject before story. And this infertility subject actually started with my graduation film, because I was 30 at that time, and all my friends were having babies, and I was diagnosed with endometriosis, and all the doctors were like, maybe it's going to be very tough for you to become a mother. So at that point I struggled with a lot of really ugly feelings, really taboo feelings about jealousy, about why can't they when I can't, and so on. And actually that was the main reason why I did Baby Pyramid, because I wasn't finished with this subject. So in my graduation film it was about what happens between friends when somebody can and somebody can't. And in Baby Pyramid I wanted to put it on a next level, like look at it as how it is in society today, because it's like there's so many expectations for women today that we are using our 20s, where we are most fertile, to get like equal with men and get like our work situation and our career going, and then too late we are beginning to make babies, and in Denmark we have a really high rate of infertility, and I was really curious about all the rules that was set that you can get help to get a child until you are 41, and in the private you can get help until you're 46. So I wanted to like try to dig into all these rules and ethic dilemmas in this subject, and therefore I made Baby Pyramid. So to answer your question, I think it needs to come from somewhere in me, because for me I ended up not going into treatment because it happened naturally, but we thought it would, be tough because all the doctors said that. So it was quite a roller coaster for me emotionally. When I was done shooting the film when I got pregnant, I was in the post-production, but still I had this roller coaster of feelings that I thought that I was maybe supposed to end up as Hannah, in the main character in my film, not as far out as she is in the film you will see tomorrow, but I was really afraid of not being able to get there, and that's also why I'm really proud of doing this film and making a voice for all the women that it isn't, where it's not succeeding to get a child, because I think the subject has been treated in film before, but always in the end, some point they succeed, and that's not reality. And I believe that you can have a beautiful, wonderful life without a child, but the struggle there is so tough, and I really want everyone to know how tough it is.
Okay.
And that's also why I use a lot of research in my film, as like the journalist I really talked to about 100 women during my research that were struggling with infertility. So to get all the points and all the taboo feelings and all the process that you are going through during fertility treatment. Yeah.
Wow, I think that's an amazing life experience and filmmaking experience, that you're making a film about the impossibility to have children while you cannot have children. You finish the shooting, you are in the editing, and you get pregnant.
Yeah.
You should have record yourself at that moment. It would have been like an incredible document. Yeah, that's quite something. Okay, the film is screening tomorrow, as I said. Okay, Maria, we jump to you after working with so many French, Portuguese, Spanish directors, Tarantino. The list is, I don't know. I was trying to figure out how many films you've made, and it's about more than 200 films.
No.
I was in the MDBA, and it's like a lot. You even made a chapter of Cuéntame. Hasta hice un capítulo de Cuéntame.
That's true.
Pero si me lo he leído todo.
I read everything about her, yes. Can you tell us, please, when you decided that you wanted to move to the other side of the camera, and if there are some subject matters that are more interesting for you, how you choose those topics, those subjects? Yes, well, after that first movie, I continued studying other things. I studied philosophy, and then, I'm always a disaster to organize myself. I don't even try, and so it was all just it happened randomly. It was by coincidence. I ended up studying in Paris, in a drama school in Paris, and it's like a movie, right? Like, you start by falling in love. I know that my first movies were about theater in a way, because I was interested in showing, in filming, shooting theater from the point of view of the actors, because it's very different, right? We don't see things there on a flat screen. We see it with movement, so that was very interesting for me. I wanted to explore that, so I shot a film about Beckett's play, and another one which is The Death of the Prince, that's the title, about some texts in symbolic theater by Fernando Pessoa. And so quite, very things based on literature. And I started growing in my career, and I realized that it was a privilege for me. I was the daughter of two journalists, so I could have become a journalist, but thanks to my parents, I got to know all the agents in the revolution in Portugal. They were young soldiers, and thanks to my parents as well, I had access to many documents, unpublished documents back then, because, maybe I should explain a little bit what this revolution was in Portugal, because probably it's the most important and most beautiful revolution in Portugal, something unique in the history of non-violence. It was a revolution carried out by young soldiers, the Carnation Revolution. They were coming from a background in France, fighting for the longest fascist dictatorship in Portugal. And what they did is they arrived with their experience, their expertise in weapons, and they were decided, they knew they were not going to kill anyone. And they were successful. They returned power to the population, to the civil population. So it's really success of civilization. On one side, this was something that was praised for some time, but it was during the Cold War, so we had the different interests of the different blocs, and well, they were there. They were available in Portugal, and I read the diaries of many of those soldiers. They written those diaries during the colonial war, and it was quite shocking. And many of them described their daily adventures during that revolution, and they all referred to cinema, to movies, and they all were saying, back then I felt like in an Oliver Stone movie, or some others would say, back then I was living a Charles Chaplin movie. And I was thinking, I want to make this film. This is the film that they saw. I want to shoot that film where they felt they were living, a weird mix between Oliver Stone and Charles Chaplin, right? That was how my first feature film was born. And then afterwards, I've seen how much of my work afterwards keeps going with that, looking for that freedom. And I want to add something else. There was a documentary about the relationship between artists and movie critics. It's a very weird relationship, right? Well, with the egos of both sides, and it was quite a funny experience. I really enjoyed it because they were all playing the game, and they were all very self-critic, and but after that, all my movies actually keep on working with that same dialogue. You mentioned your first feature film, Capitanes, and the movie that you're presenting here is a movie that you shot actually in Bolsonaro's most difficult times. Yes, when I was there. Well, it's true that it's a movie that also deals with motherhood, but at the same time, it has it also deals with politics. It's a very harsh environment that you are dealing with. And I've seen Capitanes de Abril. I haven't seen all your other films, but I've seen that one, and I've seen the film you're presenting now, and both of them refer to this historical moment, very different one from the other, but you really show both of them very well, right? In one of them, non-violence, and the other one, pointless violence. Yes, actually, it deals with violence and how it's becoming normal. No, in a way, it starts like a comedy about the relationship of a mother with her daughter, but then we feel how it darkens the society in Brazil during those years, and we see that in the movie. How can you be a mother during fascist times?
Are the only documentary filmmaker here. So tell us a little bit, what are the themes, the subject that interest you? How do you find your topics? How, that spark that clicks into the mind makes you go for a topic or for another?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I've quite some different topics, and I was you were telling about the film you just made. I also make a film like that because I was also not able to have children for a very long time, for 12 years, and I ended up making a film which was actually a conversation between, a joint project between a Japanese artist who made a big work about fertility, menstruation, all these kind of things in Japan, in a little village. And I went with her, and so it's about fertility in Japan. I don't know why. Well, Japan, because we met each other. So I always, the funny thing is, like, some people do a lot of research, and I end up always with friends of friends, I don't know, maybe just, and it kind of works, and it kind of is interesting. But that was a film back in 2010, and actually, when I made it, also my protagonist, because we're talking about this woman thing, she's quite a famous piano player from Japan, but also a visual artist. And a lot of her sponsors and a lot of venues where she need to go with her project said, "Oh, menstruation, oh no." So it was such a big taboo, I didn't expect it. And also talking about infertility, and you telling me the same now 10 years later, so not a lot have changed, but it was also, that was actually my only film, because I was also thinking what you have said, that, you know, you were not so aware of being a woman, and you just, you know, try to find out your own path. I have the same experience, so I also I never thought that, you know, men, women, I was just thinking like, just want to do what I want. And but then I made a film about a very womanly topic, and that film, well, it went okay, but I felt, it's the first time I felt that if you make a documentary which is about very, soft, a soft topic, you could say. If I don't like actually to say it like this, but people around me say it, and there's not a lot of shooting or politics or la 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 la. It's really hard to get the film out in the world and try to convince people what the film is about, and it is perceived different. And for me that was an eye-opener. And the other eye-opener, when I also was thinking like, oh yes, I'm a woman filmmaker, because I just went my way, was actually the director of the documentary film festival in Amsterdam, Orwa Nirabia, from Syria. 2 years ago or something, he said, like, in a conversation, you know, Aliona, but of course, you know, if you would be a man, you would be far more famous. And I was like, oh, really? I never, and I said, I never thought about it. Well, it's better that you never thought about it, because he is married also to a filmmaker, and he said, well, I see the same happening to my wife, you know. I'm as a man, you know, I get all the attention, and from then on I started to think about it a bit, and it didn't change my subjects or what I. You know, it's always, I think with films, the thing is that people, also students, sometimes ask me like, why do you choose one subject over another? And for me, is I try to feel in the beginning if this would be a subject which could have me interested for a couple of years. Because there's many subjects which, you know, like you think like, oh, it's interesting, and then in some months you're like, I'm bored. And if it has to do something with yourself, it can be something small, or you know, or something that you're always interested about, then because you need so much determination to make it, and so much effort, so that even when you get bored or whatever, or tired, you still need to go on. And but many of my subjects, so I think half of my subjects are like in Iran, Japan, the Netherlands, and the other half are always with my films. It's Russia, because my mother is from Russia, and it's a never-ending. And for me, what is also very important there, it's a country with a very, very complex past and present, as you know now. It's horrible, and I have like this hate-love relationship with it, which is now more hate, and hopefully, but some people are still with love. So many of my subjects are dealing with the Russian past and with the unresolved past of Russia. Well, we were just speaking also with about with the Dutch embassy people about that Spain also have a really big unresolved past.
Yes.
And I think it's fascinating because it's so, how are you dealing in a country where you had Stalin and when one half of the country was betraying the other half and people are both perpetrators and victims. So, and this is also in my family, in all families, these kind of things are happening. So in many films I try to deal with it, and I make these films both for international audience but also for a Russian audience because it's important that these stories are being told. So that's more or less.
I think I'm going to send Mr. Vladimir a copy of Capitanes of Abril and tell your body to the side.
I'd like the soldiers to
That's
rebel.
good.
Yeah, I'm just gonna make a little package and I'm gonna start throwing it,
Yeah.
in the fields
that
of
would be good. Yeah.
Ukraine.
Yeah.
Cuéntanos, Ana, un poco cómo escoges tus temas.
Can you please tell us, Anna, also how you choose your topics? What's the process in your case? What Aliona said was very interesting. It's true that people don't realize, but you work in a project for 2 years, minimum 2 years, and sometimes when you're the producer, even 4 years, because then you shoot the project, but then you have to distribute that project, that film, take it to festivals, and so how's your process? Oh yes. Before, I want to add something about what Maria said. How to become a mother in fascist times. I want to say something. It's brief, but probably I can jump from that to the answer. I have 2 kids, 14 and 11 years old, and I started feeling like ashamed recently about the world, about our world. We suffered the pandemic, and then the war came, and I don't know what political situation we were living that they asked me about it, and when I was trying to answer, I realized that I was trying to go around everything because I was feeling ashamed. How do I tell them that now they are going to suffer this after everything on climate change? And so I was feeling embarrassed. And this is interesting. It's interesting to see how the dialogue between different generations takes place. A dialogue that it's not always necessarily based on words. In my case, for example, I have friends with different ages, and I see that dialogue. If you take it away from the specific generation or the neighborhood where you're living, it becomes bigger, and I think that's wonderful. In films, a movie gives you the opportunity to go out from your own vision, from your own perspective, because it's sometimes exhausting because it's your own vision. So it's always wonderful to see how movies give you the opportunity to just turn off the light and see what's going on in a different kind of environment, in another country, somewhere else. And in my case, intuition plays a very important role. That's the way I work. There's an image that really works for me. I have like a greenhouse with plants, and I have little plants, and I have the feeling that I am not in charge of them, that I don't take care of those plants. They just grow, and I work for at least 3 years with each project, with each screenplay. Right now I have several, and I know this because a friend asked me yesterday. Right now I have 5 projects, 5 of those plants that are there, and I have a feeling that they are there growing they are autonomous, they're independent from me. I just visit them every now and then. I look at them and I think, oh, this one grew a lot during these days I wasn't here. This one, no, this one is not growing anymore. This one is very small. It's quite ridiculous if you think about it, but it shows those going back and forth that you have with your projects, trying to see what happened in the world during this time. What did I want to say with this project? Will I remain there? Why am I going to stay there working for 5-10 years with something if it's not something that is really powerful, really a reason that I want to work for? And that is true for filmmakers, also producers and screenwriters. I think we are the ones who are there from the beginning to the end. And you see how people come and go, right? They come and leave. No, I'm gonna make a film, and then I'm gonna go do something else, and you're still there working on that same film, that same project, and someone new comes, and then they leave again. No, I'm there. No, they tell you that they're coming from working with other films. They have another life outside of your project, and you're still there. So I need that habitat, which is my movies, the movies where I perform, or the movies that I write. Those are my imaginary worlds, and I need them to be plants that I enjoy having around. I need it to be a habitat that I enjoy. Sometimes it's not like that, but I need them to be plants that representative of me, of myself. So yes, it's my own vision of the world, that it's hard. I don't know if it was always like that, but right now it's hard, that's for sure. And well, those are like Frankenstein monsters that I see there growing, and I don't take part really, but although I do in a way, and sometimes it's years, it's many years, 7, 10, I don't know, very long processes. Your plants, oh well, I love that image of the plants. That's what I will remember, your greenhouse with the plants. I think it's a very clear image that shows how you need to believe in an idea, and bet on that idea. Can you tell us also how you get to your topics? No, in my case, I'm scared of illustrating that idea. I try to break up the idea, because the idea is going to be there at the end of the film. It's going to be there at the end of the script, of the screenplay. But the thing is, I focus on contradictions, on paradoxes. That's what really appeals me. That's what makes me jump into a project and work on it for 5-7 years, because you're in a labyrinth. You're not looking at it from above. You're lost there, and you need to find yourself, and there's a lot of yourself in there, a lot of things from your past, from your present, so that's why. And when you were talking about the revolution, the Carnation Revolution, it's a wonderful moment in the human in the human history, and we have the opposite story, right? Ana and all people from Latin America. So finally, you can jump from one topic to another one, and if you start with something that is that you're passionate about, something that you have a poetic image about, you're going to see how your story, or at least for me, I've worked a lot with violence in different contexts. Women, Tupamara women, where I don't talk about guerrilla, I talk about situations where you are living life or death situations. That is something that is very human. You need to leave your kids behind, or you're going with them, and some of them go with them. Or torture, for example, people who break when they are being tortured, because our bodies are not prepared for that, and you're not a traitor. So each decision, each human decision, is a whole universe. And from there to the craziness, to the war violence, and to history, how you grow up in a violent country, in a violent Mexico. So the subject matters, the topics just come up because they are in your life, they are a part of your life. And in my case, if I think about the concept about how I leave my process, I think of a square that is going to be a terrible limitation for my creativity, because creation is a land of freedom. We need freedom for creativity in life. Well, that was wonderful. Well, it was wonderful, very beautiful. I think it's great that each of you get there through a different process. I think that's what's most interesting. I'm going to ask you one last question, and then we will give the floor to the audience. I think we also have questions of our audience on streaming. This is a film festival about movies made by women, not for women, but made by women, filmed by women. And there's always this question. Since we are female filmmakers, we need to think about Baby Pyramid, for example. Baby Pyramid, is it a movie for women, or it's just another circumstance? It's a thriller, it's a movie by a Danish woman, it's a movie by a woman that comes with this background. Do you think that it's a movie for women by definition, or it's just something else? It's just an additional characteristic of your films?
Yes. No, but first of all, the answer is no. I could have made this film with a main character who was a man, who was also not able to make a child. In Denmark, I think it's like 40% of men over 35 are not able to make babies. It's like a huge, high rate of infertility in Denmark. So I just thought that it comes from me, so it was natural that the main character was a female. And also there's so much more to the motherhood, and you are carrying the baby and all that. But I think this topic is so important for both women and men. And I think I hope the film has its Danish premiere in a month. I hope so much that it will not only be women who go to the cinema. I hope they will bring them in, but that is the struggle with these topics, as you said, that it's often that I hear that, oh, you made a film about infertility. It's a women film, and I really hate that word, because I don't think it is. It's a film about wanting something in life that you can't achieve. It's a film about these societies that you are excluded from or are included in, and I think everyone can relate to that.
Thank you so much. I agree with you 100%. Yeah. But we always have to ask ourselves, that question. Yes. Because we keep on saying that it will be fantastic the day that we don't need to do a film festival of film directed by women. Yes. It's the same thing with quotas. We have discussed in this festival many years, should it be quotas for female filmmakers? Should there not be? We think it should be, because it's the only way that we can, get to to equality, and you have to push society towards that. But it would be great the day that we don't have to discuss about quotas. So, María, ¿a ti qué te parece?
What do you think about it, Maria? When I started obsessing about shooting my movie, Capitanes de Abril, I was very young. I was 21, and I loved war films. I loved Kubrick, Aldrich, and I wasn't thinking what you were saying before. It didn't even cross my mind whether I was a woman or a man or what. I just wanted to film a war movie with warriors telling a story that I thought that was important, and I was obsessed. I was determined to present that screenplay. I rewrote it and I presented it again, and at the end I think they accepted because they were just fed up with me showing them the screenplay all the time. But it's funny if you think about thinking where those prejudices are, because whoever that never questioned a woman, an actress, on top of everything, because we know that actresses are just idiots, an actress willing to do a film about Carnation Revolution, which is a very important moment in our history. The only one who never questioned this was the army, soldiers. They understood that I was 21, and I asked Teresa Villaverde's help. She was my friend, and we were there. We were so shy. We went to see representatives of the army, went to see the soldiers, and we told them, and they thought it was reasonable. But in other places, left-wing gentlemen told me things like, but well, why don't you shoot something easier, a movie that is more feminine? And I was like, what is the relationship between simple and feminine, if you may tell me, please? So how they were being so thinking that it was so childish, how they were so condescending with me, it really infuriated me, because I started actually collecting all those letters with insulting references, but they were quite funny in a way, because Fernando Pessoa says that all love letters are ridicule, but whoever who doesn't write love letters, that's what's ridicule. But these kind of letters were ridicule. These ones, yes, they were absurd, but it did infuriate me, because then the Aos Nossos Filhos, the film, it's a film that has to do with women, and I think it's more complex than the stories that I was telling in a war movie, right, related to soldiers. I mean, this is much more complicated, more complex. Women problems are much more complex, really, and that's the first thing I wanted to say. And the other thing is that in my experience, movies are actually like children, like our kids, because after 13, I was 30 years old, I really wanted to have a baby, and I thought, well, they're not gonna give me this, I have to go get it. And I swear that the day that I took my pregnancy test and it was positive, they called me from the Portuguese Film Institute, and they told me, well, you got your film. And I said, well, now they're gonna wait. They're gonna have to wait for me. And well, when I shot the film, my daughter was already 1 year old. She could be there. You can actually see her in the movie. And then another documentary, it was funny because I was pregnant. I was quite ahead in my pregnancy with my second daughter, and I remember we finished editing and I told him, well, she's gonna be born tomorrow. And well, that's the way it happened. So really my kids arrived in parallel with my movies.
Aliona.
What was the question?
No, okay, the question. Okay, the question is. I give you a little bit of context. The question is basically, if just by being a female filmmaker, if the question is really, if the first thing you have to say about a film, or the first difference that you find in a film, or the only voice, or the first voice that you find in a film is whether if it's a female filmmaker, it has been done by a female filmmaker or not,
Ooh.
Is it a drama? Is it if it's that important that is the gender, the gender of the director, as it is the background, as it is the experience, as the place where they come from.
I'm not sure if that's so much in documentary film, I must say, because I know in the Netherlands there are lots of female documentary filmmakers. I think it has to do because it's easier to finance a documentary than to finance a fiction film. And I don't know why. And also when you look at the film school and people who do all these courses, there are lots of women. So the documentary festival in Amsterdam, which is like the big. Oh God,
Yes.
I like. Why do I hear myself? I forgot to take this off. This is much better. They did a quota for women some years ago, and that really helped. And then I was like, oh, all of a sudden there were more women, and I don't know if you look different from, because there are many very female men as well who also have a very soft, different focus. And I don't know if we should do like the women-men thing so much, because I don't know. It would be fun to have something that you don't know who made the film, and then you have to do a survey if you think it was a woman or a man, and then see what comes out of it.
I think it would be a great idea.
Yeah, and because I'm not sure if people will really notice in a way. And but that having said, what I do know is that even at the film festival in Amsterdam, there were, before all disparity things came, there were more films made by men in the main competition. They did a big survey, like, oh, there were many men. Also, the juries were consisting of men. If there are juries, if there are male, then they tend to give, I don't know why, the award to a male filmmaker. It's really strange, but it's like the survey says it. So I'm not making this up. I was thinking like, nah, come on, this is bullshit. But well, I don't know. That is what science says. So after that, I became more like thinking like, yeah, we need more parity. We need really a lot of juries with women, and so. But it's really hard to grasp it. I think I just, my latest film, which is now just finished, Turn Your Body to the Sun, is also something about war and men. But I think if a man would do the same film, it's also so generalizing. But for instance, I don't know everything about war, and my husband knows. And I was, when I was making this film, I was like, I was looking at a lot of archival images from the Second World War, and I was thinking, and sometimes you saw soldiers falling. I was like, I'm not sure if this is a Soviet soldier or a German. And then my husband came like, yeah, that's a German. You can see because the hat, and the uniform, and because they grew up with like doing, knowing a lot about war. So probably my film is different, and I'm not focusing so much on the war. So maybe these are just tiny things that make it different. But apart from that, come on, it's. I don't think there, and I think it's also, and also to give a very small example, I'm now teaching 6 young students from the Dutch young filmmakers, and we had to select them from a group, and just by coincidence we had 5 men and 1 woman, and then people asked me like, oh, you can't do this, we have parity, blah blah blah. And I was like, yeah, but these were the best projects, and 3 of the 5 men were gay. So I don't know if that is also a difference, but it's just so, yeah. So I'm all the time I'm torn in between of thinking like, yeah, we need parity, and being also, not feeling good with thinking like, oh, am I a female filmmaker or not? Because it's not the point in a way. So this is kind of an answer.
Muy bien.
Very.
Ana.
Es interesante, es una pregunta que.
It is a complex question. I think we can analyze it from different points of view. In a certain way, due to my own perspective, I don't know if it's related to being a woman, but if I go to a small side alley, I always tend to do this, and I'm not thinking about the large avenue. I'm always on the side parallel alley, and I'm grateful for this. It works good for me. But I think a certain amount of singularity, this is how my work is described often, is a singularity that I don't really know if this is the word, but it has to. What I do know that patriarchy is a singularity. It is reading what is singular within patriarchy, and I have some small examples that I can bring forward. For instance, more talking about the outside, there's always been comments on my humor, the type of humor, and I really like it, but it's not really calculated. It's just the way that I have to tell the story, and it's present all over the story. And during my years as a filmmaker, in my films, in my short films, series, and that I've worked now for Amazon, Disney Plus, or in my work, international sales agents, when I finish a project, they always say, I like this singular work. But I think we all need to have a music to be able to set a difference between comedy and drama. And this is the perfect description of the contradictive way that I have of telling stories. It is not a coincidence, and I don't really want to highlight this comedy, because if I do so, it is horrible. There's a reason. Certain things have to be officially funny, others not. If you change this, a lot of things cannot be understood. If the family is good or not, economic system, if it works or not. And I think we do need certain rules from the patriarchy, and I do have the feeling that I have a cross-cutting approach as a woman. I can navigate all of this, but it doesn't mean that it has to be set in stone. One of my latest projects for a TV series, there was a sort of erotic plot, and this was great. I like sharing these stories and shooting these scenes, and I was proposing an actor for the casting, and they told me no, and that actor does not fulfill those requirements, the mainstream requirements that sort of an object of desire, generating waves around him, this character that just turned everything unstable around him due to his seductive powers. And I did find this humorous, and I chose an actor, and they told me no, it's not the right appearance, he's not up to the task. And then when it was done and it worked out after many discussions with executive managers from different countries, at the end of all this they said it's good, it works great. I'm not going to use the same term that they were using, but yes, it's good, it works, it's hot, yeah, that's right. These details, I do relate them to how we read the world, as in Moby Dick. All these stories that narrate the world that are related to patriarchy, the road that is taken by the hero is related to patriarchy. And if it's a different alley, a different road, strange, I prefer to understand this instead of ending up somewhere that is not really interesting to me. And it is precious to be a woman, to have this gaze, this female gaze. But I think I do associate it to how the world has been built. Not necessarily a woman. This gaze can also come from a man. But this gaze is priceless for those that have it. Yes, I agree. I think we're being tested all the time. Our gaze is being tested all the time compared to men's gaze in the film industry, at least. But at the same time, diversity of perspectives. Of course, we have gender in our gaze, but there are also different ways of being a woman. It's not a type of film. It's not one only way of being a woman. Of course, we will be critical with regard to patriarchy. It will be loaded with history of mankind, not only our own history, but also generations and generations back. We have just put our foot in the door to access the film industry. How many generations of women do we have behind it? I think that we can touch upon any human conflict or matter, but our gaze is full of this history. And I think, as Anna was saying, we're being tested all the time. And we have to just kick the door open and get in there without asking for permission. This is what I think. I don't really know if we have women-specific topics. If we think about Bergman's films, it is profoundly feminine, the female women's conflict, and he was a man, a filmmaker, and these films were shot many years ago. Singularity. And the gaze of each artist. And as women, we bring forward our own story and previous stories of our mothers and previous generations, and we're going to bring down patriarchy. But I think we are entitled to this, to talk about all these topics, and I think they, as men, can also have a gaze on feminine issues and challenges and topics. Well, I think that we're going to open the floor for questions to our filmmakers. First question.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you to all of you. My question is in two approaches, as an actress and as a person. As an actress, I would like to know your opinion with regard to the niche of 50, 60-year-old women. It seems that it's late to be a mother, but too early to be a grandmother in a film. And if you've been considering that you've been talking about fertility and infertility, it is a topic for men and women, because we also have unfertile men. We should both genders be interested. I wanted to mention menopause. It has an impact on many women, physically, emotionally. It has an impact on our family, on our lifestyle, on men. It has an impact on many things. So a film made by a female filmmaker would be, it is a broad topic, because women undergo important changes that have an impact on their way of working, the impact on her relationship with her partner, her family. This is a topic that we don't talk about, but when we talk about it among ourselves as women, what are you feeling? What you end up talking about very intimate matters, what goes on in our bodies. Being faithful, unfaithful, how your mood changes. Considering that it's a different type of infertility. You're not young, you're an adult, but at the same time, you cannot have children and you cannot have many other things. So I would like to hear your opinion on this topic.
¿Alguna se quiere lanzar?
Anybody?
The Japanese artist, she made the artwork because of her thinking like, oh, this blood is going to, it's good blood, the menstrual blood, it's not like violent blood, but it is good blood. And she was thinking about, going in menopause, and we also have, in this film I also used it, but it is a film from 2011, and people saw it, but it was considered a bit of a women film, and I think after I kept on looking at this topic after I made the film, and a lot of things are changing now with openness about this topic about menopause, because it is part of the fertility cycle, and it is part of the end of it. And so yes, I hear what you're saying.
I would like to comment on it. It's not about menopause, but during my pregnancy I was really sick. I was throwing up every day, so it really it was hard in my post-production to go to work every day during that time, and I needed to be honest with my sound designer, honest with my producer, honest with a lot of people in a very early stage of my pregnancy where I was really vulnerable, because I didn't know if it will, stay there. So to answer your question about how can we change the fact that, there's all these, if it's menopause or infertility or pregnancy problems, I think it needs change, And how we can change it is to be honest, to talk about it, to like tell people this is how I have a really bad day, I have mood swings, or I'm feeling hot, or I'm throwing up. It's the easiest way to like push a good workspace to also about the. I actually have a actress friend who is in her mid 40s, and she didn't get a part because she was too old to be the mother, and they actually asked her if she wanted to be the grandmother as a side part in this TV series, and of course she got really offended by it, but I think the only way to change this is to speak out about it and be honest that this is not okay. It's not okay that we only book in what Netflix thinks is the right actor for a sex scene because this actress is harder than the one that we actually thought or had a vision about. It's not okay. So yeah, I think we should speak out and be honest.
Muy bien, como ya han contestado dos, si os parece...
Okay, yes, sorry, Maria. Well, films reflect many elements of, patriarchy and women as objects, as products that can be consumed as long as they are attractive. There's a huge mess with regard to this. And there's also an unconscious speech. They won't say this openly, but if you're not within the age range, reproductive, attractive for certain dominant, rich males, and I'm not going to continue with the rest of insulting adjectives, you're out of the circuit, and that's true. And it's better to say so, to speak out, because it helps us be aware. And in France, I watched a French film that I can't really remember very well, sorry, but it was an intellectual saying, a woman who thinks is not attractive to me. She doesn't turn me on. And I thought, what? And it's there. It is floating in the air, involved in narcissistic literary words that feeds itself. And this is the reality, and it's better to talk about it. Yes, I was listening to you, and at the same time, it's not that bad to be outside of the circuit. Is it bad? Well, for actors, yes. For actors, it's bad news not to be within the circuit. Yes, but at the same time, you have a gaze. You're talking about different contents, different movies that are now being made. Not necessarily related to physiological, biological topics. They can also have a limit. And when I travel, I tend to see recently groups of women traveling together, having fun, so much fun, and I say, I want that. And workshops, events, that we always have groups of women, and I don't see that they're lost or suffering or sad. But we do have to see which kind of cinema. Maybe you've been praising films that at the end of the day reject you, so you might have to review all the films that you've watched. And this has occurred, it's happened to me with certain American authors that I've read for many, many years, and it's horrible right now from my perspective to see what they did. The circuit, of course, it has to do with jobs, but maybe you don't want to belong there if you can be outside. Well, money is still dominated by this circuit, by these kind of, this, yes, of course. The rest, yeah, well, they can think whatever they want. Well, this is sad to say this, but it is logical taking into account of these 5 wonderful women. Last question. So you can one of the two, please.
Hola, nada.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here. I wanted to ask you if in the future you had to start your career again from scratch, what would you do differently? Because, well, obviously now you are experienced, you've worked a lot, but what things would you do differently if you had to start all over again? It would be, my question would be like, what piece of advice would you give to young directors who are starting right now their careers? Thank you. We would always be wrong, and making mistakes is part of your training in filmmaking. Don't be scared. Don't be scared of that, because otherwise you cannot move forward. But what is making a mistake? Not being successful? I don't know if any of you regret about anything, but we are here, we're in the world, we're living, and that's what we can do. Make the best of it. Live it to the fullest. And I have to tell you, what I would tell you is, how do you know if something is going to work or not, right? I believe that you must not be scared. You must not be afraid to make a mistake. You need to follow your vision, your contradictions, and you need to explore all that. And there is where you're gonna find a great movie. That's what I think. Anyone else?
I totally agree. What I really did wrong in the beginning was only thinking, oh, they gave me an opportunity to make a film. I'm not going to ask money for it. And so I really fucked up with author's right, with what I will be paid for what I'm doing. And it also has this feeling like, and it has to do with insecurity and, not knowing if you're good or not. And it took me a long time to really realize, like, oh, but hello, I can ask this. It's not a big thing. And the funny thing is, and I think it's a mistake also women make very often. If you ask more, they respect you more. My God,
It's true.
It took me a long time to understand. So don't be afraid to ask that as well.
Me dicen que podemos hacer una pregunta más.
They're telling me that we have time for one more question, so please go ahead. Good evening. Thank you very much to all of you. It's been a great roundtable. in the previous one, they talked about how difficult it is right now to find diverse content in platforms, because the algorithm tells you what you need to keep watching. And one of the screenwriters, I think it was Alicia Luna, she said how we are tired, fed up of series about girls disappearing, or always the same arguments. What are you proposing? What would you suggest, or what difficulties you find to also get out of those algorithms? What is the difficulty in the industry right now to push or to introduce, maybe that's a better term, to introduce other kind of narratives, other kind of stories? Well, first I would say that there's life outside of platforms. That's what I would say first. And then something else I love to say: every time you watch Netflix, a kitty dies in the world. Well, I was born, actually, I look young, but I was born also back when platforms didn't exist. So I know. Well, yes, but obviously, depending on how far we want to get, or, well, if you don't want to work for an oil company, well, don't go to an oil company and apply for a job, right? People cannot change oil companies. Well, you should try to see how you can find a different kind of job. I know it's a terrible example, but there's life outside of platforms.
So new in this field that I see a lot of. We have a platform with old movies in Denmark, so I see a lot of old movies. I don't go to Netflix, and I don't know the question. What was the question?
Okay,
Sorry.
The question was that it's very difficult, because Netflix, Amazon, a lot of the regular platforms,
yes,
it's hard to bring them films out of the box. Even if it's a film, they have to fill some requirements. It has to be, we have to have certain films made by women, but all of the films are the same. They are made by women, but they are all very similar. Mm-hmm. We need to do films with diversity topics, but they are all very similar. We need to do films where you have transgender people, ecology. It's like but they follow kind of the same pattern.
Yes.
So what if you don't want your stories to feel into that pattern?
Yeah, but I don't know, because I'm still so new. Maybe I will get in the maze at some point, but right now I think we also, as an audience, have a responsibility to choose something else than Netflix, because that's where the change will happen. For Netflix side, if they need, like, if they see that the audience are searching other places or not watching only Netflix, they will maybe open up. I don't know. I'm
Yo creo que hay
Actually, there is something that I totally agree with Elena. Market laws. I'm not going to change the market with an idea of mine. No, that's ridiculous. That's absurd. We would need to talk about how we are educated, what we do every day, what we're eating. But I do believe something. I think that this is happening nowadays. There are quite a few platforms, and it's not always clear what's being sold. When we try to adapt a movie or a series for it to be purchased, to be bought by the audience, well, we see something that it looked like it wasn't gonna work, but then it was a total success, a blockbuster, and then we get another one that is the same, and another one which is similar again. It's like we are all trying to find our way, and when there is a successful product, we try to replicate that all the time. But we are always looking for opportunities, and it's always linked to money. Again, we're talking about money. But there's other things. It's like, well, if I want to be there where the money is, well, then I want to be there. That's where the money is. So if that's what I want, I'll have to adapt. Well, I don't know if I should answer as a director or as the audience, because I don't know where you're coming from. Well, maybe a future producer. We are trying to work in research and development with some startup, and we're trying to tell the world what we're doing, and to do that we're trying to set a production company to distribute our work. So it's something very different. It's out of the market, so like you're saying, it's a very alternative proposal. It's not only platforms. We have movie theaters that have alternative programming in some cases. Whenever it's different, right? And they don't only show Hollywood movies. Yes, that's the tragedy nowadays. I've worked, but that's such a cruel environment. It's very difficult, very difficult. And whoever is choosing the products, the series, well, it's not the audience, at least in Mexico. I don't know, well, depending on when they are going to listen to me, maybe they will want to kill me. But we have a series about drugs now, about drug dealers, because that's what's selling right now. And the algorithm is the worst way we can use to read a human being. I think the worst possible way. Because, well, yes, it's a job opportunity, because if you study in a film school and you just go to the platforms straight away, but we will need to change that, because it burns your brain, really. But there have also been weird and exceptional projects in platforms, but you need to really look for them. It's difficult to find. They are a rare find. I think that we cannot forget our ability to read images, to read what they are giving us, what they are offering us, what they want us to consume. No, this is what we need to fight for. What are those series where there's always a girl that has been tortured, or a girl that was killed? There's always that male perversion. And it makes us nauseous, because they just repeat that over and over. It's always a girl that was being tortured or killed, and I think that must be our fight. We need to be able to read. We know Freud, we know Lacan, we know about the unconscious mind. So that's what the big audiences want. We need to kill that, not the little girl, but that macho philosophy and beyond. We need to tell them, we cannot keep going like this. What do you want to say with this? What is it that you're offering young audiences? Because I have two daughters, and I see how the boys their age are even worse than men my age. This is terrible after years and years of feminism, because they have been brought up with an idea of sexuality that is really very violent against women. So we need to be there. We need to fight against these. We need to say this is not going to happen. We are not going to continue with this. And I think that's the way how we can be feminists in an active way within the audiovisual industry.
Última pregunta, la verdad.
Well, thank you for the last question, opening the debate. Don't forget that as an audience, you also have your own responsibility. I'm not going to judge anybody, or I'm not going to say you have to watch this or that, but we all have a responsibility as spectators, and it's there. And I always say the same, and we can all watch the same films by the same directors, but you have to dare to research, investigate, to discover new languages, new formats. And nowadays, internet is a world of opportunities, and I'm probably one of the oldest here, and before you had to go to film archives and certain specific places. Now you have a window to be able to educate your own taste and be brave and research. That's what you have to do. So thank you very much, and please go to the movies.